Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you know Bike Friendly Atlanta, you can go to bikefriendlyatl.org. Check them out, like and subscribe on social media, maybe get involved if you would like to. Also, we want to hear your story. We want to hear from you. And if you got an interesting story that happened on a tennis court, near a tennis court, anything about tennis, really. Dave told us a story previously about some things got heated at a junior tournament. And those are just some fun things we'd like to hear about. We'll share it on the story. You might even have it featured on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today, this is the ultimate guide to getting your kids started playing tennis. Today, we are answering the question, do you really get what you pay for? Which is going to be a fun one because this is about pricing. This is about what a coach costs. And we want to try to answer this question. So, Dave, where do we begin? Let's start with the industry average. I know Atlanta is very unique, so it's hard to have this conversation where if you're listening from New England or LA, that's a different world, or somewhere with only indoor courts. Chicago's a very interesting market. But in Atlanta, we know the industry average nationally is about $85 per hour for a tennis lesson. What does that mean, Dave?
I think it means the same kind of as kind of like when I go to buy grips for a tennis racket. I know where I can get them from firsthand. I know that every grip or like every pro has their level of experience. With a grip, it's shelf life because they do have shelf life. So you have to be careful of what you're not necessarily what you're paying for. That does always matter, but it also matters what you're going to get for that sum of money. The sum of money really is irrelevant. It's what you're getting. And I'm not sure if there are places out there. I know Yelp is out there for restaurants to get reviews and things like that. Word of mouth to me is always the best, advertising for especially in a customer service based industry that we're in. Word of mouth is 100% got to be the best. But in today's society, you want to reach a little farther than that, than just your home locale, city or whatever. You want to reach the region so that somebody coming in or that doesn't mind traveling a little bit, like we said in one of our earlier podcasts about, travel and time. People don't mind traveling if they know what they're getting is very well worth it. And that's what essentially is going to happen anyway. As your student, son or daughter gets better, they're going to start looking for, is this coach satisfying our needs? And they may not be able to from time constraints, from more classes than individual privates and things like that. And that's all okay. I think I don't necessarily not only price myself, but I don't think of what other people charge. That's not, I tell people, get what you can get. I'm not against it. I mean, this is you got to make a living, but I also know that you just have to investigate a little. We've been over that in a podcast before. Investigate a little bit early, and you'll probably more often than not going to get what you pay for, plus some.
I was talking to another coach in the area, Kenyon, and mentioned what you and I were talking about previously about this conversation about getting what you pay for. And the idea that if you've got a budget, you can say, I can afford X per month, call it $100. If you got $100 extra that you can get your kid a lesson or get a tennis lesson for yourself, you got to decide what you can do with that $100. Now, if you're going to go get your tennis lesson and you're going to go say, hey, I've got something technically I need to fix, or I need a coach to help me with a thing. You're not just paying for drills, right? If you're going to hit balls, that's fine. You're going to pay $15 to $25 an hour or so for your drills, and you're getting one of those a week. But in this case, let's say the example is my kid's looking to get started playing tennis. I got $100. What can I do with that? And who's going to come to me, or do I have to go to them? What a
Right.
lot of people are going to do is they're going to say, how many lessons can I get for $100? Now,
Right.
my first tennis lesson when I was 9 years old, back in 19, was $25 an hour. It was
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Now, at the time, that was a decent number. I had a coach that came all the way up from in town Atlanta out to Lilburn
Right.
to play tennis with me for 25 bucks. That sounds insane. When you think about, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive half an hour to you, and then I'm going to drive half an hour home. I'm going to spend an hour with your kid, and you want to give me $25 and you think I'm going to thank you for that? I don't want a soapbox here, but come on, people. Understand there's a value to what you're getting here. Kenyon looks
Right.
at me and he says, Shaun, that's exactly how I view it. I go, you don't think I'm going to go find a $25 golf lesson? No,
Right.
I got to pay the guy his 150 bucks. So I
Right.
better be ready for that lesson and he better be good at what he's doing. Now,
Right.
that's a coach finding a coach.
Right.
So that's knowing the value that's there.
Right.
Now, paying less, I assume because you and I agree on this, we think that's a terrible idea. But then again, that sounds self-serving because if there are coaches out there still charging only $40 or $50 an hour, that lowers what people are perceived value. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think, unfortunately, in today's society, that little word there, THINK, doesn't exist a lot of times. Um, we there are people out there that feel that being accessible to everybody, that was the part that when I grew up, I didn't have access to, back then was probably $30 or $40 an hour for a top level pro. I couldn't come close to that. I spent my time in the public park, not in classes, just hitting and playing, and did what I could with what I had. And later as I become number one or two in the country in my age division in the 30s or 35s, I had coaches say on the news media when I'm in town playing at a big team event. Well, if he would have had a coach when he was younger, he would have been on the TV. And
Maybe.
I appreciate the kudos, but I'm that kind of guy that if I think a kid needs my help, if I can bend a little bit to help that kid, and I know their situation is dire, I'm going to help the kid. I have a heart that will lower for somebody. I know if I don't give out, but if I know you are a dire situation and it would help your life, what you can possibly reach
There's
later on, that's right. I got time for that. And a lot of coaches won't, and that's their prerogative. I don't hold it against them. I don't. But I've helped kids in the past, and they turn out to be millionaires. And you know what? I wish them the best. I don't look for anything back in return. That's not me. I'm not that way. So, those cases do happen, but you have to. Here we go again. Back to our earlier podcast. You've got to do your research and think about it because it does occur. You can get a good value lesson for a little bit less of money, but you're gonna find that special person. They don't walk around too often. I guarantee you that.
Yeah,
So,
and that's just luck. And we've talked about insurance, we've talked about
yep.
certifications and
Yep.
what the coaches go through. And in the same way, I might find a plumber. I had to find a plumber the other day,
Sure.
right? You make 3 phone calls and you find out who's competent. Now, I'm guessing they're not allowed to do a lot of plumbing without whatever their licenses are, and you got to have all those things. Like you can cut hair. What's the phrase? You can't cut hair without a license, but you can just walk onto any tennis court and play tennis with a kid. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So people look and they say, well, oh man, I really can't afford that. I said, I get it. Tennis is expensive, but get your volume for free. Get your volume on a backboard. Get your volume with friends. Same way Dave did, I did as a kid. I'd go down, take my bike to the courts,
Yep.
3 serves one direction and hit 3 serves back the other. I guess that says we didn't have many friends, did we? But it was a thing we really loved, and the kid really likes it. That's fine. Maybe you will find a coach that might lower their prices for you or give you a deal on the academy. but it's not a thing that if you don't know me, don't call me up and say, can you lower your prices?
That's
Because
right.
you're devaluing me. You don't call up Verizon and say, hey, yeah, I know it's $1,500 for the iPhone, but I'm on a budget here. Can you make it 1,000? Like,
Right.
when has that ever happened? But they think
Right.
tennis coaches are supposed to lower their prices simply
Right.
if you ask.
Right.
Now, in this case, if I pay more, do I go out and find the most expensive coach that I can possibly find? Now, granted, most of the people in Atlanta, they're not going to have a website. It's
Right.
not like you can necessarily find all these people,
Right.
or there's no ranking system. Maybe that's the thing Go Tennis needs to do. We need a Yelp for tennis
Right.
coaches where, ooh, there you go, 5-star system. No,
Yeah.
okay, I'm getting lost. But if I go find the most expensive coach out there, does that mean I'm getting the best thing?
No, no, not just the opposite of what we just talked about. Doesn't mean the cheaper guy is going to be the absolute worst. It doesn't mean that. You have to think about it. You have to do your research. You know, who is the coach? Who is the coach coached? You know, show me some of his students, or do you mind giving some references? No, I don't mind. I got plenty. I've got one on the other side of this tablet right here. But and he'll tell you exactly what he feels about me, and you have to take that for that value and move on and decide what you want to do. It's still up to that parent or parent and kid to decide, but price value doesn't always mean quality. Doesn't.
Yeah.
You'd like to think so, but it doesn't.
Well, and it might. I think of the watch analogy I saw at a television show sometime where the guy's talking about if you've got two watches, you got a high end and a low end, you might kind of say, I can't really afford the high end. So you pick the low end because it barely meets your minimum requirements. But if you add in a third watch, even higher than the high end, now this middle end watch becomes more reasonable. I don't want the cheapest thing, but I can't afford the
Right.
most expensive thing. So you
Right.
stretch a little to hit that medium thing, right? That
Right.
middle
Right.
watch says, well, now
Right.
that's that perceived value
Sure.
that says, all right, well, I can't afford $150 an hour for a tennis lesson. I might as well be playing golf. But
Right.
which is strange. Why do golf coaches get different question for a different day? But and we'll ask Ben Hesley what he charges for a baseball lesson, right? So if you go and look at those things, and soccer lessons are rare, they're not the same. That's almost always a
Right.
team thing. So in tennis, we have that perceived value of, if I'm $85 an hour and I'm in a private facility and Dave's in a public park, and maybe the average there is a little bit lower. Maybe it's unlikely a little higher at a public park, but
Right.
sometimes even your fancy country clubs are going to be higher because they've
Right.
got different costs. But there are lots of different ways to look at these pricings. And the interesting thing about it is, do you get what you pay for? Probably, because that's going to be in
Sure.
your own mindset. If you go and spend the extra money and say, you know what, this guy's expensive, therefore he's probably really good, still pay attention. Very much pay attention.
Sure.
And ask around, because we have plenty of people come to us as coaches. Dave, you have this where they say, well, my other coach told me this thing. And you just shake your head and think, where do you find these people? Where do you find these coaches? Just because he played at UGA, he's a coach. He used to play at Georgia. All right, great. Well, he's teaching you a scissor kick and you've never played tennis before. And Kenyon looks at me the other day. He's like, Shaun, they're teaching stuff that only a Division I player can do.
That's right.
You never taught a beginner before. So just because he comes off the tour and he's charging $250 an hour doesn't
Yep.
mean you're actually getting the value of it. And maybe that's the question, Dave. I'll let you explain. I think what you were saying, I think I know what you were trying to say,
Sure.
which is the value is often based on what you actually get, and you need to feel good about the money spent.
That's right.
It's very little or a lot. If you say, hey, all we can afford is
Right.
$25 and I'm good with whatever we can get, or 85 is average, that's great. I hope I get a good coach. He's certified, all the things. Or you know what? I'm paying $150 and I love it because I'm sure that means this guy is good.
I think at the end of the day, if thinking in hindsight from, here I am, Tyrannosaurus Rex, but I think at the end of the day, any coach you pick at any price, I won't say any price, but with the parameters being what you're trying to find, you're gonna have to step back once you've made that decision and say, okay, let's give this coach a fair amount of time, maybe 3 to 6 months, something like that, and let's see the progress. I'm not going to look week to week for progress because it don't happen that fast. It could go a little bit week by week. You see a little bit, but you watch about 6 weeks, and if they're actually doing what the coach is telling them to do away from the court that they're practicing, you're going to see noticeable differences. If you're only paying me or Shaun to come out, no matter what we charge, we're just your 1 hour hitting toy, I got to tell you, your kid is not going to get better.
1 hour a week is not enough, people.
No, 1 hour a day may not be getting it. That's minimal. And, it's the old additive of, daily consistent effort creates progress as fast as anything does. Now, can you help your cause by maybe a lesson in there once a week with that daily routine? Absolutely. But that consistent effort is what builds on itself. And you're getting a good coach for the money, give him a little bit of time, see if the progress is helped along the path by that. And if it is, keep riding and dancing with that coach. Don't listen to the grass is always greener over there, because you're going to get taught your ear off everywhere you go. So that's my recommendation is, research them, and then think a little bit and give the coach a little bit of a little timeline, maybe, like I said, 3 to 6 months. It ain't going to be 3 or 4 days. Come on, people.
But the ultimate guide to getting your kids started playing tennis. Do you really get what you pay for, Dave? Maybe not. But if you think you're getting what you're paying for, if you feel good about the money you're spending, right, you're in a good place. How's that?
Yeah, especially after a small window of like 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. Yeah, you should start seeing something better happening for sure.
There you go. Dave Matthews, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.